Let me get me all my bells and whistles working this morning. This is Willie Jones. I'm president of Women for Progress, and you've tuned into another edition of what it says up there, the Working Woman Report. So thank you so much. This is programming brought to you on behalf of the Women for Progress Radio Network, which continues to expand and empower, and we're so excited about celebrating 10 years in radio right here in the state of Mississippi. This is programming and a network brought to you by women that have produced, write, and host all the shows that are on this network. So we're so excited that you are continue to support us for over 10 years, and we hope you continue to stay tuned as we continue to grow and expand and share all the work of women that we come in contact with. Also, I want to first, before I forget, speaking of the Women for Progress Radio Network, today at 5:30 we launch a new program called Pearls of Wellness, and it is being hosted by our own super RN, Miss Mary Williams. So from 5:30 on this same show on Facebook Live and on all of our radio networks, if you'll go to womenforprogressradio.com, womenforprogressradio.com, all the schedules of all of our shows are there, and there's a little button. You don't even have to think about where to go. There's a button to click to get us on Facebook Live when we're live. Also, there's a button to go to, if you're on your smartphone or tablet, you can click a button and it'll go directly to all of our radio, connect you to live to all of our radio networks. Also, that same button, radio button, if you missed a show, you say, hey, I was talking to someone in Walmart and they was telling me about the great conversation that was on 2 weeks ago, you can go back to those archived programs and be able to listen to them, be able to share them with your friends and your neighbors and your associates. And because we want you to share. This is our work. This is the work that we do, disseminating information on all the issues and topics that impact us as a community. So thank you so much again. And also tomorrow night at 5:30 is our flagship program, the Women for Progress Radio Show. And that's every Thursday at 5:30. And we have the incredible editor-in-chief of the Clarion Ledger paper. So I'm excited to have a conversation with her. I have not met her before. So we're excited to have her, and I have a whole list of questions. That might be a two-parter. So tune in with us, and please stay connected and share our information. And today I want to get started right away, because we here at the Working Woman Report is programming to highlight the work of women throughout the state of Mississippi. Our goal is to help our citizens here in Mississippi understand the impact of women and the work that we do and what we bring to this economy. And no better way to do that today to welcome our guest, Dr. Sophia Omari, who is the Chief of Staff of the City of Jackson. And so we are so glad to have her with us. Welcome, Dr. Omari, to the program.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be invited.
Thank you so much. You, of course, have been a frequent visitor to our radio network over the years, and we thank you so much for your support. But today, when we talk on the Women for the Working Woman Report, we talk to women about their work, who they are. It's more of a personal conversation. So we'll get into a few issues down the road too, but we want to start off talking about you and your work, which is so incredible. There's a full bio on the City of Jackson website. I want people to reach out to get. And I'm so sorry I didn't print it out. I meant to read to you all the great things that she does. But please go to the City of Jackson website, and the entire team bio and information is there. But Dr. Omari is you. When I think of you, I put you in the category of those women who. And I meet many of them, Dr. Osby, Dr. Nellums, women like yourself who are in social work. And of course, you have done so much more, professor and researcher and all those other things. But the work that you do around social work, it seems to be a superpower that you all hold. You use this, it's almost when you come into room and I hear you speak, I want to hear you see your hands go up and say, or your crown pop up, You use this superpower to empower women in our communities in so many, many ways. So talk to us this morning or today about what was the catalyst for this particular career in social work?
Okay. The catalyst. People always ask me, how did you end up where you are? And the only thing is that I can say for as long as I knew that I was going to have a career, I wanted to be a psychologist. Mm-hmm. As a little girl, my mom, you know how Black middle class families, you always had a set of encyclopedias and those things on a bookcase in the living room. Mm-hmm. And my mom had ordered a group of self-teaching encyclopedias. And one of the books was psychology. One of the topics was psychology. There was French, there was typing, there were all these things. And I picked up the psychology encyclopedia and decided to read it. And from that point forward, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to understand people. I wanted to understand why people behaved the way that they did. I ended up as a psychologist in social work because I felt like for Black people, traditional psychology and the way it was practiced was just not going to get us to where we needed to be. It wasn't going to facilitate the healing, facilitate the building, facilitate the self-determination of people. And so when I decided to work in social work, it was primarily because I was inspired by the work that I saw social workers doing. And, most people thought it was just taking your kids if you don't do right,
Right.
Investigating child abuse, but it was much more than that. They have this term in social work called self-determination. Mm-hmm. And as a psychologist, I felt that was a very important concept, empowering individuals, empowering people to take control of their lives. And then I met people like Dr. Mellons and Dr. Osby, and from that point on, I knew that, this was the work that I should be doing.
Yeah, and when I think of social work in the term of the work that you all do, which is so much broader, I mean, oh my gosh, Dr. Osby is, to me, when she walks in the room, to me, she's not walking, she's floating around. She's just that amazing. And Dr. Mellons and Cassandra Welterland and so many, many, many more. So I am so impressed with the passion that comes with this particular work, the insight. To me, you all bring, when I think of social work around the work that you all do, is that you are privy to information that the average individual does not have, an insight that the average individual does not have. And that's what it means to me. It's a bigger thing. But I did pull up great technology here. I got 10 different devices. I do want to share your brief bio here. Sophia O'Mara, PhD, currently serves as Chief of Staff for Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumumba. She served as Associate Vice President for Research and Sponsored Programs and an Associate Professor of Social Work and Health Services at Jackson State University, prior to accepting her current position in Mayor Lumumba's administration. Prior to her employment with Jackson State University, Dr. O'Mara served as Chair of the Psychology Department at Tougaloo College. She received her PhD in Experimental Social Psychology from Northeastern University, and her research interests include mental health, effects of gender, race, and culture on health behaviors and psychological well-being, violence against women, and discriminatory stress. Dr. O'Mara has published and presented nationally and internationally in these areas, and she has been honored on numerous occasions for excellence in scholarships and teaching, and for her work in the larger Jackson community. Dr. Omari has always identified herself as a scholar activist and continues to work with a number of community groups to address social justice and mental health issues. She served as Chief of Staff for the City of Jackson under the late Mayor Chokwe Lumumba. She currently serves as an officer and member of several nonprofit boards, and she is a proud mother of 3 children and has 6 amazing grandchildren. It always piques my interest that when we introduce women, that we always leave the motherhood and the grandmotherhood as the last thing on the bio, as is oh, by the way, she's a mother and she's a grandmother. And it seems that should be on the top. I think I'm going to start switching that around for our show. And because those are the most important roles that we do. I think it's the thing that really drives us, is that motherhood piece and the grandmotherhood piece. And even though we get awards and accolades for so many different things, when we very, probably many of us few times get a pat on the back for being a good mother, because it's challenging. To be a great grandmother is very, very challenging. How has those roles been impacted your work and what you do, Dr. Omari?
Well, as a parent, you want what's best for your children, and you want to be a catalyst in the world that leaves a better place for them. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of my early activism was fueled by the fact that I had 2 young sons, and I was living in Los Angeles when gang violence was becoming just huge. And I saw the reaction of LAPD to young black men. And so that kind of started me on this path of protesting against police use of excessive force by police officers, because I could see on a first-hand basis and just the caring, that mother bear that comes out when it's your child who is endangered. Mm-hmm. That kind of shaped the whole activist persona, the activist in me. Mm-hmm. Even though I've been an activist before that, but I was primarily concerned with issues of structural discrimination, which I guess police violence is, but it's also a very specific form of violence that primarily has impacted black men. Even though we see as black lives are devalued, it impacts women and the entire family as well. Right,
exactly.
So, that's just wanting to be a part of the solution, mm-hmm. wanting them to know that there was somebody that cared and that there were things that you needed to do in order to move yourself as an individual and society as a whole forward in viewing how we see each other as human beings.
And I think as mothers and grandmothers too, because we know what it feels like when our child is not able to achieve all that they can achieve because of someone's putting obstacles in their way, or even putting them in a state of harm. We can connect with others, mothers, and it's almost we're sharing in the pain and the heartache and all of that stuff, because we know how it feels. Exactly. I think it's just and even we can safely say to other mothers, or hey, I know how you feel, and actually mean it. So I think that's where a lot of our togetherness comes from. Now, this position, a lot of times we talk about, I'm working on this piece around non-traditional careers for women. And one of the things that we talk about all the time in connecting a lot of the research is, and even when it comes to leadership, is that women have what they call transitional skills that makes them great leaders, make them diverse team players, and their ability to really do whatever we want to do. And so I want to ask, what was the catalyst for your acceptance of this invitation for Chief of Staff for the City of Jackson? That's a major role. And what part of your skills, talents, and experiences you felt that you could bring to this particular role that you've had now for a while?
Okay, that's an excellent question, and I've done primarily my reason for accepting it was personal. I wanted to make sure that Chokwe Antar had the support that he needed at this level to be able to successfully implement his visions and his plans for the city. And I knew that he needed someone that he could trust implicitly. And having been a part of his life since he was about 4 years old, I think, we had that kind of relationship, one where he knew that I would not be a yes person and just say what I thought he wanted to hear, but that I would be honest and forthright with him, and that I would give the critiques when they were necessary, right? And I think that's so important when you're in a position of leadership, that you have people around you who are not afraid to speak their minds, not afraid to have a difference of opinion, and not afraid to engage in debate around those differences, knowing that the end goal of all of that is to move forward in unity, right? And so that's one of the reasons why I came to work for Chokwe Antar. I came to work for his dad, which was my first time in the government arena, out of the same kind of loyalty. And I felt like I had some administrative skills that I gained through my career over the years that I could bring to the table. But also it was this vision of, first of all, loving Jackson, and second of all, wanting to see it be what we all know it has the potential to be, and contributing in that way to, I see Jackson as a phoenix, this beautiful bird emerging from the ashes, right?
Wow.
And I wanted to be a part of that, and I knew that deep in both of their hearts, both the father and the son, that was their reason as well for going into government. And not to say that other folks who went into government didn't have the same reasoning or the same motivation, but I thought that their ideas about rebuilding, empowering, transparency, all of those things were just what the city of Jackson needed at that point. And so I wanted to be a part of that. My research skills, Jackson, the city government is this huge entity with a lot of moving pieces. So you have to be able to get in there. And sometimes, when you talk to people, they've just been doing things because that's the way it was done when they got there. And so you need to get back to, like, why was it set up this way? And then work your way forward with regards to how might we make it better? How might we make it more appropriate for where we are at this point in time? And so I had those kinds of skills. So I've learned a lot about municipal government, and let's just say I know a lot more about stuff than I ever wanted to know. But it was that engagement was necessary in order to really be able to come up with workable solutions to the many, many, many problems that we were facing and the city had been facing for a number of years. So that's how I ended up here. Never had any inclination whatsoever. As a matter of fact, a funny story about one of the first meetings we had with a local engineering firm when I was working for Senior Mayor Lumumba. And the guy who owned the engineering firm had worked for, I think, Kane Ditto when he was mayor. And so when he walked in and looked at me, he says, "I know you know who I am because I know who you are." And I started smiling, and he said, "Yeah, I used to have to run out there when you and Big Chokwe, which is what we used to call him, would be out there protesting before every city council meeting." He said, "It is so funny to walk in here now and you're
at the table." So, yeah.
That's that transition is a huge one, but it's one that's been very fulfilling.
And I'm glad you shared that with us, because that gives us a fresh perspective of not only what you bring to the leadership there, but your focus, and it's a uniqueness to it. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And now when we talk about this governmental role and working within the government and all those aspects, you had to have come into this thing with some idea of what that leadership looks like. And has that changed your idea of what leadership means? Has that changed over the time period that you've been working within the city?
I think not my overall vision of leadership and what that looks like has not changed. Some of the steps of what we need to do to prepare people to become leaders, that has become more apparent to me from this role. And I have to say that I was in a middle management role in private industry. I was actually in middle management in a large insurance company, but while I was working on my master's in psychology, right? So I kind of understood the private sector vision of what management and leadership looks like. Then, of course, being in the academy, that's a whole different type of leadership. I used to say it's like herding cats, because everybody has PhD, right? Everybody is an expert. So that takes a special kind of leadership as well. But in government, I think leadership truly has to be committed to the people that you serve. And so you hear a lot of people talk about servant leadership now. I have to be honest, the first person I heard talk about servant leadership was the late Mayor Chokwe Lumumba. And he talked about being a servant of the people. And I think in order to be an effective leader in any kind of government setting, you have to be a servant first. And because there are certain things that you're going to have to sacrifice. There are certain things that you have to be humble and understand that it's not about you, right? It's about the larger public. It's about the public good, and I kind of think that's what Chokwe Antar meant when he said, "When I become mayor, you become mayor," because it's a collective process where everybody has to accept a role and accept their responsibility in that role. But you need someone who's going to have to make the hard decisions. After gathering all the information and listening to all the different perspectives and the viewpoints, somebody has to make that hard decision, and then be willing to take all that comes with it. And in government leadership, I think that is very, very key. Recognizing your connection to people. You know, you aren't a tyrant. You aren't a dictator. But at the same time, you have a responsibility to make the best decision possible based on the best information that you have.
That's a good explanation. And now I want to move a little bit into the issues a bit. Of course, we're still in a pandemic and still in a crisis, even though I walk out every day and as if things are moving forward and people are interacting as if we aren't. But we are still in the midst. We're not at the end of it. You know, we are still in the midst of it. And I want to say that to folks that are listening. We are in the midst of this thing, and we need to hold tight. We need to hold tight and stay still and understand that. And it's going to take a lot of patience from us because we have challenging stuff going on. We have work. We have our families to feed, and we have our bills to pay, and all of those things. And then we have a future to think about, that when we think we can put our feet on the gas pedal, we know we have to stop. And that's challenging. That's challenging if you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're trying to, and if you're a business owner and an entrepreneur, one of your major tasks every day is to think about a year from now, 2 years from now, even 6 months from now. And that's a challenge when you're in the midst of a pandemic that is changing every single day. And for the most part, you are not in control of it. You can only control your actions and what you do. And that's very hard to move around in a world where we all depend on each other to do the right thing. So my next question to you, Dr. Omari, based on all the research and engagement that you've done in the community, not only in your background, but also in your role as chief of staff and working with the mayor and dealing with our city, what do you feel are the biggest challenges for women and families right now during this pandemic?
Okay, of course, you know that in the city of Jackson, we have a demographic of a lot of single parent households. And those single parents are primarily women. And whenever you have the loss of jobs, the loss of the ability to take care of your families, these single parent households are disproportionately affected. And so we see, and because we have a population where a lot of these female-headed households, they're working in the service industry. And the service industry, because of having to shut down and cut back, reduce capacity, those kinds of things, has been devastated by the pandemic. So women, we find ourselves in a very precarious situation right now in the city, and we have to really think about how we move forward and rebuild some kind of stability for those households so that the women and their children can begin the process of recovery. So you have the issue of even if she didn't lose her job, her daycare closed down, so she doesn't have anyone to take care of her children. And even though she may get unemployment, you still have the issue of the prices of food going up.
Yes.
And so being able to put healthy meals on the table with the limited income that you have is a challenge. So it's a very, very difficult time and a very difficult situation for women during this pandemic. Also, we're the ones who are the primary caregivers when anybody gets sick, which means that if your child gets sick, you're taking care of the child. If the parent gets sick, you're taking care of the parent. And so you're disproportionately exposed to the virus itself, to coronavirus itself. So that's the gloom and doom part of it. The hopeful part of it is that we've seen all types of nonprofits, we've seen the city government, we've seen the county government, and to some extent the state government come together to try to put a safety net under those families. So one of the things that we've done, even though it's very difficult and it's at an expense of having to hire an outside company to come in and do the kind of cleaning that's necessary to keep the virus from spreading in environments, we've opened back up our child care. Well, one of them. We've opened one of our child care centers because we realize that, these mothers need to have a place to bring their children. And we feel like as the city, we have the responsibility to ensure that they have a safe place to bring their children. So we've done that. We've also participated with Draw Smile Foundation and the Mississippi Food Network to distribute boxes of food to families and communities. Mostly in South and West Jackson. However, we were doing it weekly, but I think 2 weeks ago, we went to every other week. And so I think we have a distribution tomorrow at West Side, our West Side Community Center. So doing things like that, organizing mask distributions, making sure doing our best to make sure that we don't have to furlough or lay off city employees. We realize that the vast majority, we have over 2,000 employees in the city of Jackson. So and the vast majority of them don't make what we'd like for them to make. Right.
It's already a challenge.
A living wage, right? And so we know that it would be devastating to them to lose this source of income, and it would be devastating for our communities as well, because our employees provide stability for the communities that they live in. And so we're working very hard not to have to furlough any city employees, and we've been very deliberate in how we've tried to deal with the reopening. As a person who is in that category of being very I forget what they call it, but I'm old and I got health problems, right? So being in that category, where the virus could be potentially very devastating, my gut level instinct has always been just shut it all down. Shut it all down. Let's everybody just stay at home. But I realized that, that in and of itself is not the solution. Right. And that we have to work with people to make sure that they understand the seriousness of it, but also that people have to take some personal responsibility for taking care of themselves as well during this time. So we put together a task force of medical personnel, virologists, public health experts, business people, and just some regular folk to help us work through these executive orders that we keep issuing, to help us figure out what is most important that we do as a government to protect the citizens of Jackson. And, we've worked with the health department and the Mississippi Medical Association to try to get the data that we need to make good and informed decisions that will help all the citizens of Jackson. So,
yeah, and I think everybody I'm hearing from appreciate the required mask. I think that's something that, and I think, I even, when I bump into people, I try very nicely to say when they don't have masks on in public, I say to them, "Did you hear about what the city has ordered all of us to wear masks?" And I think we cannot. People say to me, "Well, you don't know what to say to people; they may get upset with you." But I think we can nicely just share with them, "Did you hear about the order?" Because I think some people, have not heard about the order. And I think because we get so much news out there, we just assume that folks hear about certain things. And I think we can just nicely share what the law is. We're not trying to tell them what to do. We're just trying to relate to them what the law is so they'll know and be able to keep ourselves. And I don't think we need to get in long conversations with folks. Just share the information and keep moving, Right. And but I think it's necessary. And when we talk about moving forward, because I think what we as an organization have been doing in our radio show and network has been doing is trying to, at the point where we are now, we've been just kind of surviving. We've been trying to make sure that the roof stays up and the kids get fed and we do all these particular things. But now we are focusing on how do we begin to thrive through this pandemic. And one of the things is that for me, women need to look at the opportunities now that we're sitting, because many of us are sitting because we're not at work. And many of us have even though we may have the ability to go back to work, we're kind of reevaluating that work. I've always hated this job. Now maybe it's a time for me to pivot and do something else. And I'm saying to women about looking at the opportunities and look at this thing. The pandemic and crisis is horrible. We have lost our families and friends. Some of us are still suffering. We have lost a lot more from a material standpoint. So look, it's hard to say there's good things that's going to come out of this, but it will. I've already seen it. I see women who are creating businesses around this crisis. I see women connecting with each other in ways that they have never connected with each other before. I have seen families now are in front of each other with the time that they need to be able to connect with each other. So I've been having this conversation for years now around non-traditional jobs, careers for women. IT, and a lot of it doesn't have to do with a hard hat. IT is considered a non-traditional jobs because the limited percentage of women that are in those particular careers. Truck driving, that's my thing and my passion. And I have to say there are so many opportunities in transportation. Tomorrow at this same time, 12 to 1, I'm going to be talking with 4 dynamic women from the industry. One woman from California who owns her own truck driving academy that has several locations. She's a female. I'm talking to another female who is a driver trainer from our own Tonal Transportation that's right here in the city of Jackson. I have another female who is a driver recruiter for one of the largest motor carriers in the country, Swift Transportation. I have another female who has been a truck driver for years and who has empowered her life with the opportunities in transportation. All we're going to be talking tomorrow and having a dialogue around not only transportation, but how women should look at non-traditional careers. Because when we talk about the money that women need to be making, you mentioned about single-family households. Women need to be making a certain amount of money in these careers in non-traditional jobs. That's where the money is that we as women need to be making. Not all of us can't be a truck driver. Truck driving is a serious job, and everybody can't do it. Everybody can't be an electrician. That's another great opportunity. Everybody can't be a plumber, but the women who want to be committed, who want to look at these traditional jobs as an opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to make a 5-year plan. I may not want to be an electrician for all my life. I may not want to be a plumber all my life. But these are careers where I can actually say that I'm going to make a 5-year plan and I'm going to get this accomplished. I'm going to pay off my home. I'm going to own my own vehicle. I'm going to put savings away for my kid to go to college. I'm going to be able to take that vacation that I have not taken for 20 years because I've been caring for a parent who is ill. I'm going to pay off my debt. All of these careers provide that opportunity for women. And I cannot say it enough, that commercial that say, I can guarantee if you're ready to get committed, that these are opportunities that we have got to take a hold of. And so I want everybody to join who can tomorrow on this same network, same channel. From 12 to 1, we're going to be talking specifically about transportation, but we're going to hit on some other things too. We got some great partnerships that are coming up to get women interlevel into construction, electrical, plumbing, all those things right here in our city of Jackson. That's going to happen. There's opportunities and resources that we don't have to create. We need to take advantage of the workforce training opportunities, the grants that are available out there. We need to come together and say we're going to empower each other to live out our dreams. And that's what we want to do around jobs. So we need to start thinking about that as we move forward. And if you want to engage in this work, I want to say, I'm going to take a moment, Dr. Omari, to say to folks, email me, WoolieJones@drivingyourfuturems.com. WoolieJones@drivingyourfuturems.com. Email us. Call us here at our Workforce Development Center right here on 55 South, 601-351-5858. 601-351-5858. Dr. Omari, the other day I posted out a post on Facebook because I'm looking for female plumbers. I'm looking for female electricians, not only to put them on my list, but I want to talk to them, but I want to put them on my list so that when my toilet is backed up, I'm calling a female plumber. So engage them in the work. But it's amazing. People have been calling me, hitting me on inbox and say, look, are you offering training for these jobs? And I'm having to say, no, I'm looking for some experienced electrician and plumbers because there's not many here in Mississippi. So I'm saying to these women who are reaching out to me, let me take your name and telephone number because we want to connect. You have an interest in becoming an electrician, becoming a plumber. Let me help you get connected to the resources you need in order to go through the training, the certification, and to make the plan for yourself. So I'm excited about that. Sorry to get on my wagon this morning, but I thought that was a great opportunity to share that information. And so I want women to really be thinking about the opportunities out there that's available. And there are many. We have to share that information. We can't hold on. When you find a grant out there, when you find a source that somebody's giving some money to empower women, we need to share it. We need to share all of it and make sure that we are maximizing all the opportunities that's available to us. As we move forward, women need to engage with each other in ways that we have not engaged with each other before. We have to be intentional. We have to continue to put women in public service. We have to do all those things. So thank you all so much for listening to my rant there, and reach out to me and we'll be glad to get you connected.
No, I love that passion, and that's what I love about you. You, from day one, you have been passionate about what you are doing. You have worked very hard in the community to make sure that resources are available to women. You have always lifted women up, and I really, really admire you. And just hold you in a special place for that. And you can see that it comes from the heart, especially, we women have been taught to compete with each other.
Yeah.
We've been taught to compete over who's the the prettiest and who gets the man and who dresses the nicest and all of those things that don't really amount to a hill of beans when it really comes down to us living a life that is fulfilling, right? Where we can be mothers and grandmothers and lovers and sisters and friends and just really enjoy each other and what we bring. So do not apologize at all. That was amazing. If I didn't have a career, I think I'd be thinking about becoming an electrician or a truck driver right now.
Exactly so much. Now, look, we talk about this pandemic and what we all been doing, and all the women that I've been talking to, we all have handled this in very interesting ways. So how have you personally been maneuvering this crisis and the pandemic, not only for yourself, but also for your family?
Okay. Initially, I hunkered down, and it gave me the opportunity to really think and reevaluate my life, because in this job, you're constantly moving and you're constantly moving from topics that may be so far apart that you don't even know how they're connected, right? And so when we were, even though I could work from home, a lot of, we did virtual meetings, and I got a chance to actually pause a little bit and think about writing again, because writing has always been a passion of mine, and but not writing so much on the academic or professional level, but just reflections on life and lessons learned, and things like your pearls, things that you want to kind of pass on to other women who may come behind you. Reflecting on what it meant to be in this position right now as the first female chief of staff that the city of Jackson has ever had. And a lot of people ask me, well, what do you do as chief of staff? And really, you do pretty much everything. And from employee issues to contractor issues to administrative issues to planning a vision, all of those things. And then the biggest piece of it is also to make sure that what's happening in the city is reflective of what the vision of the mayor and the administration to be. So I got the opportunity to reflect on that. I started out with just me, and I have a son who still lives with me, and we hunkered down, and I think for about a month. And I only went out to get groceries, and I would always make sure I went at the hours that was reserved for seniors. And but I got a chance to do a lot of reflection on where I am and where I want to be. How do I want to move forward? Because one thing that this pandemic has pointed out is and it's always there on a certain level, but this has really made it very prominent. Our mortality, right? So, where do you, if you left tomorrow, what would you leave? And if you're blessed with many more years to come, what do you want to accomplish? And so I spent some time doing that, reflecting on a lot of trying to be more spiritual, because sometimes we get so caught up in just the day-to-day that we neglect our spirit, and we neglect that relationship with God, really, that is the reason that we're all supposed to be here, right? To live our purpose. And so the pandemic has given me a chance to reflect on those things. Now I'm back at work. Because our numbers are so high, I'm actually thinking about maybe going sheltering in place again. But it has been, I think the pandemic has brought out both the worst in some of us, but I've seen pretty much the best in us. I've seen people stepping up to help their neighbors. I've seen people really trying to reconnect with family, and I think that's so important. I have a 17-year-old grandson in Florida who just got his first car back in December. And so my daughter was complaining about how he won't stay at home. And so I told her to tell him that I'm not coming back to visit as long as he's ripping and running up and down the street in Florida, that he has to get somewhere and sit still if he wants me to come visit. So I could say maybe a few years ago he would have stopped, but that wasn't enough. A visit from his grandmother.
They know grandmothers don't mean that.
Right. So, but I just think we're living in an age where we get so much information. We're bombarded with information all the time, and we feel like we have to be constantly accessible. We feel like we have to move all the time. And I think this pandemic has given us the opportunity to reevaluate a lot of that. Do we need to be accessible 24/7?
Right.
Do we need to be so plugged into these devices? Because the thing that I miss the most is just being able to hug people. I'm a hugger.
Oh, yeah.
And, I hate having to give people the elbow, especially when I haven't seen them in a long time. So I think it's made us value human connection a lot more.
Right.
And I'll end with that.
One thing that I'm thinking, I think we're getting down to our wrap up, but we've got about 6 more minutes. But I want to wrap up with this particular question. I'm thinking a lot about the young people who were coming out of their 4-year journey from college, and they had all these plans and goals, and I'm hoping that they continue that you can still live your dreams. You're just going to have to pivot a little bit and go down a different little road. You thought you were going to be going down the highway, and the road may be a little rocky now, but you'll get there. But the other thing is, I want to give you an opportunity, if you were speaking with the young women and young men out there through this whole process that we're in, what would you like to share with them about this particular time period?
I would say that this is an unprecedented time. Is a 100-year event. And because of that, they have an opportunity. And that opportunity is to shape a new future as we move forward. We don't have people talk about going back to normal. Well, we don't have to go back to normal. We can create a new normal that reflects the best in all of us. We can look back and see what worked, see what we want to bring forward with us. We can also look back and see what we want to leave behind. And I think that's why the massive response that we had to the George Floyd event took place. I think everybody was thinking about, this isn't the kind of world that I want to live in the future.
Right.
And I think that kind of thinking was fueled by the pandemic. Because as you said earlier, a lot of us had time to sit and reflect and think about things, right? So that's what I would say. I would say this is an opportunity. and use that opportunity. Use your creativity. Use your connection to the spirit, right? To send the energy out there that's going to create the kind of world that we want this to be going forward.
That's great advice even for all of us. Dr. Omari, this has been a wonderful conversation. Look, we need to do this once a quarter. But thank you so much for joining the Working Woman Report. And for all of you that's been listening, again, we thank you so much for your support of the Women for Progress Radio Network. I want to remind you again that our own Mary Williams is going to be on the Pearls of Wellness podcast that launches today at 5:30. It'll be the second Wednesday of each month, just once a month. So make sure you get in and get it today, because you won't get it again until next month. But Pearls of Wellness, Mary Williams is an RN that's been around a very long period of time. She's been working so much with the community. She empowers, and she has a leadership at Black Nurses Rock, so she supports other nurses. She's been on the front line through all of this process, and I tell you, she is just one of the most incredible creatures on the planet. And she really brings it, and she brings it real. She provides you some practical wisdom and information to empower your life, to empower your spirit. So tune in today at 5:30 right here on the Women for Progress Facebook page. Again, if you get confused of where we are, because we're all over the place, is go to that website, womenforprogressradio.com. All of it's right there, just a button away. womenforprogressradio.com. Our full schedule there where you can connect to us each week and each month on all the wonderful podcasts that are available out there. Tune in tomorrow at 5:30, Women for Progress Radio Network, our flagship program. We're going to be speaking with the editor-in-chief of the Clarion Ledger. Got a lot of conversation, so please tune in and be part of that conversation. Also, our executive producer of the Women for Progress Radio Network is Miss Juanita Brown, who's one of the most incredible individuals on the planet, and we love her for pulling all of this stuff together and working with us to make sure all of that happens. So you've been tuned in to the Working Woman Report. Make sure every Wednesday from 12 to 1 p.m. you take your brown bag and meet us right here for lunch. We've been talking today with the Chief of Staff for the City of Jackson, Dr. Sophia Omari. Want to find out more information about her? Go to the City of Jackson website to get information on the full team of the mayor's full team who's working with him to make sure that we have good leadership in the City of Jackson. So have a great week, Dr. Omari. Join us at 5:30 today for that podcast, okay?
I'm definitely going to try to make that.
Okay.
And thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure, and I'm honored.
Thank you so much for the time. All of you all out there, have a good week. Thank you.